I had a lot of anxiety. Oh my. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Tony and this is Tony Tones. So today, the topic we're going to be talking about is how I prepared for my NCLEX examination, or how I felt on the day of my examination, my opinion about certain study materials that I used for NCLEX that is very popular, and how I felt like it helped me during my examination. And just for context again, the NCLEX is your board of nursing examination that you write to practice as a nurse in certain countries. I studied in the United Kingdom. I did not need to write NCLEX before I started practicing as a nurse. So I'm going to be looking into my iPad as well, because I've actually written a very comprehensive outline just to make sure that I touch on every area that I really need to touch on. So the first thing you need to do if you want to write your NCLEX is you need to make up your mind about the date you want to write your examination. I'm not saying that you need to actually book this date already, or you need to have this date already on lock, but you need to have this mindset that, okay, I'm going to write my examination on the 3rd of February, and then you need to tailor your reading towards that date being your deadline. For me personally, if I don't have a deadline I'm working towards, I wouldn't feel motivated to read. I'm just going to be relaxed. I'm going to be reading, but I'm not going to be reading actively. I've spoken to some people as well, and I've realized that this is something most people actually go through. So when you have a date in mind that, okay, once I get my authorization to test, whatever you're waiting for, this is the date you are going to be writing your examination. That way you're going to be able to create like reading timetables and things just to make sure that you have that day as your deadline. Another thing for me is that it's very important for you to know yourself and know your weaknesses. Me personally, I get distracted very, very easily. So one thing that I was very, very particular about was cutting off any form of distractions for me. I went off social media. Like, my friends knew not to call me if it was not important and things like that. I also was not going out as much. Even on my birthday, the morning of my birthday, I still studied before I went out at night. There was a lot of sacrifice I had to make on my social life, most importantly. And another thing was, because I was fully employed full-time, I was not picking any overtime. I was not picking any bank shift, which was very difficult, because when you pick bank shift, you get paid weekly. Whilst you're still waiting for your salary to come in at the end of the month, you could always make like extra money by the side. I wasn't making any money, so it was a very, very difficult decision for me to make, especially when it's something like the NCLEX that you need to be actively reading, you need to be actively revising, you need to read to understand, you're not reading to cram, so you need to cut off all these distractions. So when I realized that, I forgot like maybe saying things that I knew like a day before. Sometimes I could just be like, you know what, like, I'm actually tired of this and stuff like that. So it's very important for you to be ready to make the sacrifices. I personally, I was able to prepare for my NCLEX in 3 months, and I'm talking about 3 months of active reading in the sense that I was reading every day. I was doing question banks every day. It was 3 months of, all my energy being put into it. Another thing that was very important for me was drawing a very realistic timetable. I had a timetable that was tailored to my, capability, on how well I knew that I could memorize things. I knew I could understand things easily. I'm going to put on the screen timetables from actual review. So we have the timetable for 12 weeks. So if you have time, we also have timetable for 6 weeks if you have time, and timetable for 3 weeks if you are someone that, you don't really have time, you need to get this thing done ASAP. So they have like a crash timetable for 3 weeks. Another thing that I realized was, because I was working and I had my own work timetable as well, that I needed to be at work, I had to start creating my personal timetable that was a weekly timetable. Because when I had a 12-week timetable, take for instance, I had to read every day. I could be at work on Monday and I could be at home on Tuesday. So the system of the body that I was supposed to read on Monday, I would miss out on it. So I had to create a timetable that was weekly, and it was tailored around my own work timetable. Okay, this week, Tony, you need to read cardiovascular, you need to read, skin, you need to read ethical principles. But maybe I was called in at work and I couldn't read cardiovascular that week. So when I'm creating the timetable for the next week, I would make sure to add my cardiovascular into the timetable. Or if I read cardiovascular a week before and I'm just doing my revision and I realize that I've still not been able to grasp some information about the heart or the cardiovascular system and I don't feel so confident, I would add cardiovascular to my next week. So it's going to be like a cardiovascular recap. So I just felt like doing a weekly timetable was very, very effective. I was able to revise, do like an assessment of how much I was assimilating information. So it was very, very helpful. So I would actually advise you to also have like a short-term timetable. Don't just have a timetable up until the date you're writing your NCLEX. Have a timetable for like maybe 2 weeks. See how you're doing with the topics. Did you read to understand? Did you read to cram? Did you read to know it? Can you say these things often in your own words and things like that? So yeah, that's a very, very good tip that you should actually take. Another thing that really helped me was I had something like a commitment mentor. It was someone I could report back to. So it's always nice if you have a mentor that is also in the field of practice as you, someone like a doctor or a nurse, someone that is just in your field of career and stuff, so that when you guys are having conversations, they're not just lost. She would tell me to read certain systems, I'll come back to her, I would explain it to her, what I mean, what I understand by it, what she would explain it to me if I don't understand certain things. She was just making sure that I was following a timetable, I was not just all over the place. So she was like a guide for me. So it's actually very, very, very important that you have someone that you report back to. It can be a friend, it can be a partner of yours, stuff like that, or your colleague at work. And if you're lucky enough to have a study buddy, good job. So we're going to be talking about the question banks that are currently out in the market and what I think about them. There are loads of question banks in the market right now, and I was able to use about 5. So I used Archer Review, UWorld. I was able to use a bit of Marquet. I used Sounders as well. And final, I was able to use NCLEX IU. So I'm going to be talking about each and every one of them and what I think about them. I started with Sounders. That was when I started reading for my NCLEX. Sounders was a very, very big textbook, and I was like, okay, let's start reading. I had my Sounders, I had my Ross and Wilson Anatomy and Physiology. Oh my God. Sounders was very, very wordy. It was not interesting. I was always bored. Honestly, personally, if I was to advise anybody, I wouldn't advise you to start with Sounders to read for your NCLEX. If you want to be smarter, if you want to understand, this system, if you want to read, like just for your own personal knowledge, you can buy Sounders just to read at home when you're not pressured, when you're not under pressure of question banks, knowing, you're not under pressure of self-assessment in question banks. You can just buy Sounders to read in your house and just chill. But if you want to write an examination like NCLEX, I do not personally think Sounders was helpful to me. Remember, I'm just having this conversation based on how these things actually did help me to write my NCLEX. It was a good material, but I just felt like it was so much information. And when I was reading Sounders, I did not really have a pattern of reading. So when I read Sounders, I would go to Anatomy and Physiology, Ross and Wilson. I would read the same topic. Then I would go to Archer. Then I would answer questions at Archer. Then I would go to YouTube. So it was just so many topics. There was just one topic that I read using Sounders, and that was maternity, labor and delivery. Honestly, if you ask me any question on maternity, labor and delivery till today, I would answer my questions to the I and to the T. But it took me about 2 weeks to understand Sounders with that topic. So that's why I'm saying that if you don't have time, Sounders is not really something that you can read. So if you want me to rate Sounders over 10, I'm going to give Sounders a 4 over 10. The next material is Marquet. Marquet is like an audio recording. They've got a book as well. I think the yellow book, but I never used the books. I only used the recording. It was good because if you're someone that you like to passively read when I was reading for my NCLEX, I had periods where I was actively reading, and I had periods where maybe if I was sleeping, I would just plug in my AirPods. So Marquee was good for when you don't have time to flip through books and concentrate fully. Maybe if you're sleeping, if you're on the bus, if you're at work, if you're on your break and things like that. So if you didn't have like good concentration, you could always listen to Marquee. So I think that's the reason why Marquee was nice. One of my favorite topics on Marquee's recording was prioritization. It made me understand prioritization with a very, very short period of time. It was very, very good. But I just felt like Marquee was a bit outdated because sometimes when he was explaining certain things, he didn't really give us the rationale behind why this was the answer to this. It was more of a just know this, go to the NCLEX and know this. You know, he didn't really make us understand the rationale, and understanding the rationale to certain things is when you can really know your context very well, and context is one of the most important things of the NCLEX. So that's one of the reasons why I'm going to be giving Marquee a 7/10. Another thing that I did during my NCLEX was I practiced my question bank every day. So I made sure that I was practicing 150 questions every day. So I'll do 75 questions in the morning and 75 questions at night. That was very, very helpful for me. Another resource that I used was Archer. Oh my God. So the Archer that I bought, I'm going to put it on the screen. It was a Sure Pass and it was $169. Yeah. So it comprised of your question bank. We have the self-assessment just to know how well you're doing. It's going to tell you if you have a low chance of passing, if you have a borderline chance of passing. It also came with computer adaptive testing. This is like the mirror of what the NCLEX is going to look like. So when you answer a question and you get the question right, the next question will be harder. When you get the question right, the next question will be harder. If you get the question wrong, the next question will be simpler. You know, it's just like how the NCLEX is actually like tailored. And it also has like this 3 days live course, and it's like a crash course. So if you don't have time to go through all the old systems on Archer, you can do the 3 days live course. That is also included in this $169 package. I also had on-demand courses. So an on-demand course is like, they're going to have a topic like cardiovascular system. They're going to talk about the whole cardiovascular system. They're not going to go over your scope of practice. Just like, you know, having different topics in nursing school, having everything on their website when you pay for the $169 package. They had cardiovascular system, nervous system, respiratory system, you know, every kind of system, name it, every system that would be, you know, that would be present during your NCLEX examination. I feel like this was a very, very good deal because it was relatively, you know, less expensive than other Q banks. I don't want to say it was cheap because cheap is relative. So it was less expensive than other Q banks, and I think it was a very, very good deal for my money. The question banks in Archer were very, very understandable. If you read the context, you understand the question banks. It was very understandable. I didn't really struggle too much because I understood the questions. I understood what I read. You know, I was reading to assimilate. I wasn't reading to cram. So the question banks were great. Honestly, if I want to give Archer a score, I'm going to give Archer a 10/10 because it was cost effective. I didn't need to break a bank, and the interface of the question bank interface was very, very similar to the NCLEX examination itself. So when I went for my examination, I didn't have any anxiety because it just felt like I was doing my question bank because it looked exactly like the way my question bank would always look like. So I'm going to give Archer a 10/10. The next one on my list is the almighty UWorld. I feel like UWorld has been able to break into the market of a group of people, and they've still not been able to see the beauty in other Q banks. That's my truth, and that's how I felt when I bought UWorld. So when I was done with Archer, I was like, okay, what next? Should I go and write my exams? Because I was done with the old system. I was done with Archer question bank. I had reviewed all the questions. I was watching YouTube videos. People kept saying, UWorld is good. UWorld is so hard. Oh my God, if you could do UWorld, you can do NCLEX. So that's why in my mind, I was like, okay, maybe Archer is actually simple. That is why I was able to do Archer so well. You know, I just felt like I was probably not so good. I was not so brilliant. I was probably just doing well because Acha was simple. So I went to buy UWorld. UWorld cost me $139. Mind you, Acha cost me $169 for 90 days. 90 days, that's about 3 months. UWorld cost me $139 for 30 days. That's for 1 month. That $139 only contained one self-assessment. However, Acha had unlimited self-assessment. UWorld had question banks, just question banks and self-assessment, one self-assessment. Left to me, I feel like it was not a good deal for my money. It was expensive. The questions were too wordy. UWorld can ask you questions like they're asking a professor questions. If you break down these questions, it's the same question that Acha is asking you. Acha is just asking you in a simpler manner, which is the same way NCLEX would ask you. Acha could ask you that, what is the name of the chamber of the heart that is above the left ventricle? We know that's the left atrium. But if UWorld wants to ask you, UWorld can be like, adjacent to the right atrium is something. What is perpendicular? I'm like, why are you guys making life so difficult for everybody? Like, life shouldn't be this difficult, because NCLEX doesn't even make life this difficult. So that's one of the problems with UWorld. UWorld, they feel like they know the most English in the world. They can speak English. They can ask questions in so much English. So that's one thing I don't like UWorld about. But apart from that, I wouldn't say it was not helpful. UWorld gave me a bit of a drill that I needed, because I felt like with my Acha, I was a bit too confident in myself. I was a bit too, I was a bit too relaxed, because I was getting very high chance of passing consecutively in Acha. If you have very high chance of passing, or 4 times in Acha consecutively, they will tell you that, okay, you can go and write the NCLEX. So I had like very high chance of passing, I think about 11 consecutive times. So when I went on UWorld, my first assessment that I did, I got very low chance of passing. I was mad. I was like, what? I'm a boss in Acha and UWorld is here trying to humble me. So that was one thing that UWorld did. UWorld made me like challenge them, and eventually I had a very high chance of passing on UWorld, because on UWorld, in as much as they give you just one self-assessment for that bundle, you can always buy self-assessment. So I think self-assessment for UWorld costs $20. So if you want to go and write your exam, but you don't have the money to pay for UWorld's package with the question bank and everything, you can just buy self-assessment. Self-assessment is like a test. So UWorld will give you like 85 questions, and then when you submit, they'll tell you, oh, this is your chance of passing this exam you're going to write, this is your chance of passing, and that's it for the test. That's it. But you can always like go back to revise the questions. I think you have just 1 week before they log you out of the portal, something like that. So that's one good thing about UWorld. UWorld challenged me to, know that I could actually do better. I could read better. So yeah, but if I'm gonna score UWorld, I'm gonna score UWorld a 7/10. Right, so now let's go to the next material that I use, and this was the final material. So after I had UWorld, then I was in the United States at that time, because I went for a trip. So I registered with NCLEX iYield. They do live courses. They also, sell on-demand courses as well. They are very popular for their live course. NCLEX iYield was a game changer for me. NCLEX iYield was one of my most expensive material. I paid $449 for NCLEX iYield. Again, the reason why I paid for NCLEX iYield was because I didn't believe in myself. I just felt like I was still not ready for this exam. I had read everything. I was good with all my systems, but I just felt like I needed another thing just to confirm to me that I was ready. So I paid $449, and the class lasted for 2 weeks. It was a 2 weeks class. Very good for me. Those periods I was not at work, I was on holiday, and I was in America. The reason why I said it was good for me was because the time zone in America is different from the time zone in the United Kingdom. So I was able to work with the time zone of the tutor as well. I was very, very impressed. They taught me like they were teaching a baby. We were about 30 in the class, and we also had access to their on-demand courses. So that's like already pre-recorded. But this guy, he taught us so well. This man knows how to teach. Some people are gifted with the gift of teaching. This guy was so good. Like this was the the icing on the cake for me. This was when I knew that, okay, Tony, it's time to go write the NCLEX. And then they would actually add you on this group that would make you have like study buddies. You know, you guys would do your question banks together. You could meet on Zoom. So it was just so good for me. I felt like it came at the right time. The live course was happening at the right time. I'm going to put their website as well on this screen, just so that you can visit them and, you know, inquire about it and stuff like that. So NCLEX IU'd, if I'm going to give NCLEX IU'd a score, I'm definitely going to give NCLEX IU'd 20 over 10, because there's really nothing that they taught us in NCLEX IU'd that I can forget. I've still not forgotten anything. And they also have like weekly free Zoom. So if you cannot afford to pay for the class, you can join their weekly free Zooms. It happens on Wednesdays, and it happens about 11 or 10 p.m. UK time, and it happens about 5 p.m. CST American time. So yeah, you can always join their weekly Zoom as well, just to have an idea. Because even when you pay for this package, it also comes with some amenities, like you can have a chat with the man, you know, you can keep having a chat with the team until you pass. They could have a conversation with you that, well, how are you doing? Are you sure you're ready to go write your examination? They'll ask you questions. You guys will have a one-on-one conversation. So I just feel like support like this are what students actually need, especially students that are repeat test takers. Even being a repeat test taker is a lot of anxiety and things like that. So this was a game changer, and a lot of my classmates that we did this live course together, a lot of them have passed, and I can see, like, because when you pass, you put your testimony on the study group and things like that. So it's actually really good. I'm going to give this guy a 20 over 10. It's just quite expensive, but you know, I'm still going to give him 20 over 10. So those were the materials that I used for my NCLEX. So let's talk about a day before my NCLEX. What did I do? So people will talk about, you know, not reading a day before your NCLEX, just relaxing and things like that. But I had a lot of anxiety. I just feel like it's easier said than done. I was having anxiety and I was scared because certain things were not sticking into my head again. So I created a very, very small jotter. It was a very, very small jotter. And then I started writing like key points, things that were not sticking into my head, just so when I'm going for my NCLEX, I could always take it with me. Or I could just put it by my bedside. When I wake up in the middle of the night, I could just open it to just look at the things in there. So that was very, very helpful for me. I couldn't sleep a night before my NCLEX. I had severe insomnia, maybe because I had not been sleeping because I was studying. I did a lot of midnight studying, so I couldn't sleep a night before my NCLEX. I was up all night. And then my NCLEX was about 8 o'clock in the morning. I got up in the morning, and you know, NCLEX is a 5-hour examination. So I wanted to make sure that I ate something. So in the morning, I think I had bread and eggs or something in the morning. And then I took a taxi to my examination center. When I got there, I was so nervous. As soon as I got there, you know, they directed me to where I was going to put my bag. They asked for my passport. They asked for my, you know, my mode of identification and things like that. And as soon as I got there, they just directed me to the room where I'm going to write my examination. Like, I didn't need to wait for anyone. So if I even got there earlier than that, I was still going to write my examination as early as I wanted to. As soon as I sat on the chair and, you know, I logged into the computer, it was like, okay, now Tony, it's game time. I didn't know what to do. I was just shaking. The first question I saw, it just put me offset. I didn't understand the question. I went next. I didn't understand the first 3 questions, to be honest, or the first 5 questions. Let me tell you something here. Nobody knows the question in NCLEX. That's just the truth. These question banks, they just try their best to be as close to, you know, the context that is being taught in nursing school as possible. But I tell you for a fact that I did question banks with UWorld and I did question banks with ACHA. And I didn't see any questions that was similar. I saw a question that, you know, if you understood the context of this particular question in ACHA, you can answer the question in NCLEX. But I didn't see any question that was similar word for word. So if you're reading question banks, we aim that, okay, you want to cram these questions because these are the questions that will come out with the NCLEX. That's very wrong, because nobody knows the questions that come out in NCLEX. And another thing is that my medications that came out in my NCLEX were not familiar medications, were not medications that I knew before. So if you're somebody that you're really cramming all the medications like word for words, I would advise you to know more of the compound names. Like, your blood pressure tablet, the LOLs, your beta blockers, and then your ramiprils, the prils, your ACE inhibitors, things like that. I would advise you to know more of things like that, as opposed to you cramming labetalol is for blood pressure. It's more important for you to know that things that end with lol are beta blockers, things like that. So that was what happened. When I got to like 30 questions, I was shivering, I was shaking. I had to run into the bathroom. I took a break. Mind you, when you take a break, your time doesn't stop, it still continues. So I took a break to the bathroom, and I just want to pray. I just want to tell God that, if it's your will, let it be done. But God, let this be your will, because your girl has been reading for so long. Because I just got a bit like frustrated. I felt like I wasn't getting the questions right, and things like that. So I just went to like take a rebreather, like, okay, breathe in, breathe out, Tony, you can do this. And then I went back on my sit. And then, I kept getting questions that I didn't really understand. But I think that's just the thing about NCLEX. I've really not seen anyone that has written their NCLEX and they will come out of the exam hall and be like, oh yes, I did so well in that exam. Everyone is always like unsure about how well they've done in the examination. So my plan was that, okay, God, I'm not doing so bad, so I should be able to get to 100 and something, so that they will know that I have potential. I'm not bad. I read my books. But lo and behold, when I got to 85 questions, my computer shut down. So because I wasn't doing so well in my mind, I felt like it shut down because it kicked me out. Like, what are you doing here? You don't even know your onions. So when I was on my way home, I was so sad. I was literally crying. I was very, very sad. I was emotional. I did not even know how I got home that day. So when I got home, I did the perseverance trick. Yeah, the perseverance trick. I was so eager to know my faith, and I got debited. So if you don't know the perseverance trick, you try to register for another NCLEX. So if you get debited, if they debit you, it means that you did not pass, and then you would register for another NCLEX. So in my mind, I was like, okay, if they debit me, it means I did not pass. So I'm going to write another NCLEX anyways if I don't pass. So I might as well just pay for the NCLEX now. And I got debited. But I think about 5 hours after, I got refunded the money again. So I was happy because my perseverance trick actually did work. And then 2 days later, I checked my result and I passed. So you can also pass the NCLEX as well. Just believe in yourself, just be dedicated, focus on these things. And if you really know that this is what you want for yourself, just give yourself that 3 months. Cut out any distractions that you have and things like that. So thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification. If you have your NCLEX coming up and you're having anxiety, please let's have a chat in the comment section or DM me. We could have a chat on how to get rid of these things. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye guys.